Alright, this is the Shadow Ranger back here in my next video. I'm going to cover a couple of wrestling topics today. First part, I want to do another short response to JPM and Carl, and that's going to lead me into the other topics that I want to talk about in this video. I watched your video that you made in response to mine. Again, I agree with some of the things you said, and some I didn't. Again, I agree that Zack Ryder is awesome. First of all, when we talk about Robbie E, I'm glad that you understand the point that I was making, that you understand that I wasn't trying to attack you guys personally on that. But I actually think Robbie E winning the belt is a good thing. Maybe it was done a bit too quickly, but you have a nice storyline of Jay Lethal chasing the belt and Cookie's getting in the way. On reaction, Jay Lethal talked about it, saying that, he the whole no man on female violence Spike TV rule. He's gonna have to find a woman who can take care of Cookie, keep her out of the way. So I don't know if he's gonna recruit. So I think he may be recruiting someone new to be his backup to keep Cookie out of the way, so he can get the belt back from Robbie E. Because he flat out said, without Cookie, Robbie E can't beat me. So all I gotta do is find someone who can take her out of the picture. I guess we're probably just going to agree to disagree on Paul Heyman. I understand some of the things you said, and I agree that wrestling maybe need to find something new, but I do doubt that Paul Heyman is the guy who can bring something fresh and new to wrestling that's going to bring fans back. When I hear him talk, it seems like he wants to make it more like MMA, and I think that's a bad move, because if wrestling is like MMA, then I might as well just watch MMA, and I don't like MMA. Second thing I want to talk about in this video, you talked about it can't be debated that TNA needs new creative direction. Yes, it can, and I kind of do debate that. Maybe when we're in the minority, but I watch Impact every week, and I always like it. I can watch the show, I understand what's happening, I get what everybody's doing. There's storylines up and down the card. There's main event storylines, multiple upper card storylines breaking off from the main storyline of Jeff Hardy and Immortal. You have storylines with the X Division title, the women's division, the tag division. There's multiple things for you to watch in TNA. They started this Bubba Ray versus Devon thing on Impact this week, and I don't want to see that, but it's okay, because there's 4 or 5 other storylines on Impact that I can watch, even if I don't want to see that one. So, also, I don't think the whole TNA creative thing is as serious as everyone makes it out to be. I mean, like I said, TNA sometimes confuses people because they do lots of storylines. Watching TNA will require you to think a little bit. It's not the type of wrestling show that you can just half watch. You can't flip over and check the sports score during the game or make a sandwich. You actually have to pay attention to what's happening in TNA, because if you miss Impact for a week, you're not gonna they're gonna do enough in that week where you're gonna have trouble following the storyline the next week because you missed the previous week. It's not a spoon-fed wrestling show. It's not the kind of wrestling show that's spoon-fed to you. But like I said, I don't think the whole changing creative teams is as serious as everyone claims. I mean, if I took over TNA tomorrow, I probably would make some changes to the creative team, but there's a lot of other stuff that I would do first. Like, if I took control of TNA tomorrow, it'd be at least a year before we even got to changing up the creative team, because there's so much other stuff that I want to do, that I would change. And I'm going to talk about a few of those things right now. First things first, before I even thought anything about, get rid of Vince Russo or anything. Hang on a second, I need to take a drink real quick. First thing I would do is leave the Impact Zone. Find a new home. I'm not saying take the show on the road every week, but they really need to leave the Impact Zone. The Impact Zone crowd has become jaded and just flat out spoiled. They ruin everything. You complain Like using Robbie E as an example, people talk about, oh, it's stupid and it's not over because the Impact Zone boos it, but that's just because the Impact Zone doesn't like it. If you take that same gimmick to somewhere else, that gimmick might be over. I was just reading an article by someone just a few minutes ago. He was talking about he saw them do that gimmick, Robbie and Cookie, in some house shows in other places around the country, and he says it was over everywhere else it's been. He said he's seen it at more than one place, and the gimmick's always over. But at the Impact Zone, it does, because the Impact Zone is a Southern Florida crowd. Maybe they just don't get it. I mean, I imagine other people that gimmick would be popular a lot of other places, because Jersey Shore is a really popular show. I mean, Jersey Shore is so popular that I've never watched it, and I can tell you things about that show. I know the names of the characters: JWoww, Snooki, Paulie D, The Situation. I know that The Situation was on Dancing with the Stars, and I don't even watch Dancing with the Stars. I know some guy punched Cookie in the face. Snooki got punched in the face once. I don't even watch Jersey Shore. I know that Snooki got a book coming out. I mean, it's a very popular show, and just because the Impact Zone doesn't like it doesn't mean that other people wouldn't. The Impact Zone is so jaded, and TNA is judging everything they do by what the Impact Zone thinks. People are saying that, oh, Jeff Hardy isn't getting over as a heel because the crowd's cheering him. No, the Impact Zone is cheering him. They may be able to get Jeff Hardy over as a heel in other places. People talk about AJ Styles. They try to turn AJ Styles heel, and it doesn't work. Of course it's not gonna work. The Impact Zone isn't gonna boo AJ Styles. He's their freaking hero. He's been their guy, and he is the face of that building. When you think Impact Zone, you think AJ Styles. That is literally, you know, not literally, but that's the house that AJ built. Like he always says, that crowd isn't gonna boo him. They love AJ, but I bet if you let AJ do some heel stuff and take him in some other cities, you could get the boos. You could get them to boo who you want them to boo and cheer who you want them to cheer, because they just do every show in front of the same crowd. That crowd is spoiled. That crowd is jaded. They've developed a sense of entitlement, like you should book the show just for them, and TNA buys into it. So I mean, like, again, day one, find a new home. Actually, what I would do is try to maybe do 2 or 3 different homes in different parts of the country. Maybe have a venue that we tape from up north, a place we tape in the south, a place in the east, a place on the west coast, the east coast, different areas that we could alternate. You know, we're gonna tape, like, say we do the tapings, so we're gonna do the first 2 weeks of tapings at our venue in New York, right? And then when it's time for the next set of tapings, we're going to tape out of, maybe we'll do Florida at the Impact Zone. Then the next 2 weeks of tape, next time it's time to tape, maybe we go tape in a venue in Texas. Like, set up 2, 3, maybe 4 different venues or at different spots in the country, and just rotate those same 4 buildings. And look at the different crowds and the different reactions you get. And then every so often alternate them. When you get tired of one, let's move to a different area for a while. I don't think it's so bad that TNA has a home that they tape their shows from, but you need to move sometimes. You know? I mean, how many of us grew up in the exact same house our entire childhood? Most of us didn't. A lot of us sometimes every few years or so move. I mean, at least every couple of years, when I was a kid, we would move to a new house. It was still home, but I had new neighbors and, you know, new kids to play with outside. I always went to the same school, but, you know, you lived a little different area. You got to know some different people. I think that would be really good for TNA. Second thing after that, I would work on getting Explosion aired in the U.S. I think they could use that for, you know, more matches, more storylines. So maybe you wouldn't have to crowd Impact up so much. Maybe you could take one storyline off of Impact and move it over to Explosion. You know, I could actually do something with the women's tag belts now, which hardly ever gets seen. You know, let those be on Explosion. Let those belts be showcased on Explosion every week. You know, I can have Taylor Wilde and Hamada kicking butt on Explosion every week. You just bring in a couple of indie girls for them to job too, and ones you like, you keep on the roster a little bit to do some feuds with. There's stuff you could do with that show. You know, marketing is something I try to improve. You know, I mean, you know, they can't compete with the WWE marketing dollar. They don't have the history, but when people see TNA, most of them like it. You know, I'm an American, born and raised in USA, but I live in South Korea now, and I work as an English teacher. And last year, I teach adults now, but last year I taught all elementary school students, and I actually showed them TNA once. We were doing summer school classes, and we had time for a break, but we couldn't go outside. So I asked them what they wanted to do during their break period. They said they wanted to see watch wrestling, and I showed them some TNA stuff, and they loved it. I showed them some X Division stuff, and they loved it. I showed them a Suicide match, and they thought Suicide was Spider-Man, but and for some reason they think that Beer Money looks like DX. But the point is, they enjoyed it. Like, if TNA did a show in Korea and showed more of their stuff here, they could get a fan base here. Because I've shown it to my students more than one, and they always loved it. They got to work on marketing. I mean, they have big stars, but how many people know that they're there? You need people to know what you got. You know?